Right, so this is a really interesting topic that we're going to go through today. So just by way of introduction, before we get straight into it, just to remind you all, OTT's 3 pillars are Learn, Inspire, Connect. And so the Learn piece of OTT is, of course, your course and keeping that up to date, keeping it engaging, and making sure the agents are learning as much as possible about your destination or your products and services is really all about the learn aspect. Inspire is, of course, the marketing that you want to do in order to draw the right people, not necessarily everybody, the different specialists that we have amongst the OTT data, to come and see you on your e-learning course and understand more and more about your services, your products, your destinations, and so on. So that's the inspiring aspect of it, and learning more and more about you through marketing. And Connect, of course, which is what we are focusing on today, is about then connecting with the micro audience that are engaging with you. These are the ones that are the most engaged because they have taken 20 minutes to learn about you, and they're the ones most likely to sell you. So they're the ones you want to nurture and look after and inform as much as possible. And so Connect is the way in which we do that. OTTOmail is something that if you haven't learned, you do need to to learn how to create an email, for example. And then you can actually email the agents with your special offers, any COVID news or anything that you like, any partner news, newsletters and so on, through OTTOmail. And we have a new piece of Connect as well, which is our OTT directory, but I won't go into that today at the moment. So today promises to 10 times your sales channel, and in fact you'll find that James has found 12 times way of doing this. So we're in for a bit of a treat to understand and demystify email marketing generally, not just for your B2B channels, but also I'm sure it will help your B2C channels as well with some of this information. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce James Skellington from Force24. So Force24 is the company that powers the OTTOmail product. They've spent more than £2 million on their software. It's very sophisticated, it's very good, and what they don't know about email marketing probably isn't worth knowing. So James, over to you.
Hello everyone.
Hi James. Also, just before we move forward, we also have Nida from OTT, who, as many of you will know, is one of the account managers, and she will manage the chat. So if you have any questions along the way, then she can help out where she can help out, or she can certainly ask Jake any of your questions that you may have. So that's it from me for now, in any case. So Jake, over to you. James, over to you.
Thank you. So if I just share my screen for the time being. So this, you're absolutely right, Julia. This was originally how to 10 times your marketing ROI, but this is all taken from a case study which we executed through Force24. And what we actually found was, following all of these points and these components, actually 12 times our ROI. So it sounds a little bit more robust, although it sounds a little strange, I know, the 12. But these are all things which have been tried, tested and implemented through not only our own business, but other businesses as well. As I said, a lot of this is case study. So what I can do is, if I start taking us through this, just a little introduction to me. So I had the travel team at Force24. My background has been with Google. I've worked agency side, working with media, digital and PR, and now I'm very much immersed in the email world. But marketing automation should really be a connection of all of these worlds as well. It's how do we pull all of these together, and I'll go into that a little bit more. One thing that I think is really key to point out, this is a piece of copy which we wrote for Travolution. In this very difficult time, marketing is very easily something that people cut off, and they almost think, oh, we'll cut back on our emails, we'll not talk a little bit because we can't sell. But in actual fact, at this moment in time right now, it is imperative that brands be communicated with their clients, with their with their end customer, because otherwise it feels like there's something not quite right. In actual fact, trust comes from that frequency of communication, that a level of transparency which says, you know, this is what's happening with COVID, this is how we're tackling it, these are the locations that are available to you right now, these are the precautions that we expect you should be taking. All of those things are reassuring to an end consumer. And with brands that you're working with, because it makes them, or lets them know that you are working towards the objective of being back up and running as soon as possible. The other side of this, if you withdraw communication, poses a lot of risk, and in that either looks like you may not survive, or you aren't doing anything, or in fact you're trying to hide something from those people. So again, a frequency of communication is imperative right now. And I'll be able to share this as well, the link, which so you can read this piece of copy as well. So an agenda for today, we're just going to look through to set the scene. Why would you use a tool like OTTOmail? We're going to go through some important points of note, so what you will need to improve your ROI, the actual 6 steps that Force24 took to 12 times our ROI, and 9 tips that any business can use to improve their communication strategies. So to set the scene here, the modern marketer we find in travel, more so than any other industry, is spread thin, wears multiple hats within the business, and is encumbered by manual process. And inevitably, marketeers are creative people. RMD says it very well, where it's, I didn't become a marketeer for the boring bits. You know, these people have been brought into businesses to be creative, to add value and connect the experience with their consumer and their clients going forward. And in actual fact, the modern marketeer is often nothing more than just moving data around to segment data and then send batch and blast emails, the one size fits all. And in actual fact, the modern challenge here is to connect the human and digital experience, be that the sales consultants, the people that are on the phones with the marketing comms, the PPC, the Facebook ads, etc. All of these worlds need to be connected in order to provide one cohesive experience. And in actual fact, consumers are zoning out, and customers, everybody's zoning out. And in actual fact, I do a few talks, and it's often that I'm prefaced by somebody talking about DM, you know, the direct mail piece, and how email is actually returning less than ever before. And to some extent, I have to agree with that, because this one size fits all form of communication, you know, we create an email, we send it to everybody. You're on a mailing list, everybody is aware of that now. And in actual fact, unless you start to personalize, unless you start to craft at a one-to-one level, it will start to fall on deaf ears, and people will stop responding and listening to your message. It's been said better before than I can ever put it, so we'll go with this. You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. And this rings true today more than ever before, where it's, if we can listen and learn from what our customers and our client base are telling us, we can personalize and ensure that we are telling them the right message at the right time, as opposed to just broadcasting without thought around what we as a brand are trying to tell our consumer. The challenge and the problem in the modern era is that most marketeers are using largely the same tools and metrics. As the world has evolved and the space has become more saturated and more challenging, we're still measuring the exact same way. And if we think about email, one of the main metrics which we refer to as vanity metrics is opens and clicks, where opens and clicks are useful, and it's good to know that people are engaging with your content. But in actual fact, if they're not then moving on to carry out what your call to action is, or move into your broader offering as through the website, etc., then have you really achieved anything? Because really, if your objective is just to have your email opened, we can send all kinds of crazy stuff out, and it will definitely get opens, but it will not drive the bottom line. Vanity metrics are the key thing here, and what we need to be looking at is more than an open or a click. What do we then look for? Are they then signing up for new for new courses? Are they coming onto the website? Are they downloading your COVID brochure or your updates? Are they engaging with those things? Because in actual fact, that's what we're trying to achieve by sending those communications. And all of this world, as I mentioned before, should be cohesive, you know, whether it be email, Google, DM, SMS, Facebook, the guys on the phone in the office, all of these worlds should be telling one cohesive story. And if you get one response from, as an example, through SMS or via email, that should be replicated and mirrored within any other line of communication, which is where a tool like OTTOmail comes into play. And this is how we do it through the Canvas piece here. So your team at OTTOmail are there to support you and look at how do we connect these actions and audiences together through the Canvas within the platform. Some important aspects of note. I think the first one here is that some of the tools that I am going to talk about, which we see as being imperative, are not a part of your standard package with OTTOmail. They are available to you, and we'd love to speak to you about how you can advance these. But in order to leverage this, so that would include if you are looking to not only target the high value customers that come to you through OTT, but also start to use this in a broader spectrum of your in-house data and the rest of the data to further your communication at a broader scale. Some important aspects of note here. So a path of least resistance is one that we talk about frequently. The constant struggle to improve efficiency is relevant in every brand across every industry. And there are some big clients in the travel world that I've spoken to that have been at times taking over a week to write an email, which is just crazy. And if you think about this, through the time that should be available to you, data segmentation should be immediate. As opposed to pulling data from every source that's available to you. It should exist within the system, which it can do within OTTOmail. Email templates should not take you longer than 5 minutes. And when I say that, what I mean is for you to build an email, it shouldn't take longer than 5 minutes, because that time will never be reciprocated by the end client or the recipient. In actual fact, where you should be investing your time is content. Writing content and putting together valuable content is invaluable. Invest all the time you can in that. But actually building an email is bait. It is a hook to get somebody's attention, then bring them through to a landing page or into the website to digest the rest of that content more fluidly. Landing pages is a big thing, built on the same methodology as the email builder within OTTOmail. We sit as a subdomain of your existing website, so it doesn't slow that down, but it means that we're able to populate dynamic content based on what people have engaged with, be that welcoming them by first name, be it talking about the most recent courses that they've sat, all of these relevant components, and I'll talk a little bit more about how valuable that is as we go through. To 12 times, you must be able to measure. This is such a big thing where we need to understand what does success look like and how are you going to measure that success going forward. As I say, opens and clicks can't be the be all and end all. We need to look at, are they actually coming through and engaging with our content? Are they taking steps, whether it be a questionnaire, signing up for the next course, referring another person in the business, whatever it may look like. We need to be able to track how that success is taking place. And you need to have the right tools for the job, i.e. can you lead score? By lead score, what we do within OTTOmail is we attribute a value to every action but taken by a person. So for example, you get a point for opening an email, a point for coming through to the website. Web tracking becomes a really integral component here, which again is something that we can look at for adding through to you guys. What that means is that if I were to come through to a website today, I would pick up an anonymous cookie. I visit pages XYZ, but I remain anonymous. Once I leave data, be that a data capture point, or if I engage with one of your emails, that cookie becomes identified and that previous browse activity is then appended against that single customer view within OTTOmail. What that then means is that people coming back through Google, through Facebook, whatever channel it is that they come back to your website, we can then score that activity and understand truly who are your highly engaged customers. Again, probably more pertinent towards your existing client base, as opposed to the high value contacts that are coming in through OTT. But to be able to understand which of those are actually highly engaged with your content, and in turn, how do you communicate with those guys more frequently as opposed to those that are unengaged? Can you escalate opportunities into the sales team? So through that lead scoring methodology, we can attribute a tipping point. And what that means is, in actual fact, if Julia's been on my website, she's been on every single page of the website, she's highly engaged, yet for some reason we haven't had contact with her, I need to ensure that I can highlight that Julia is the correct person from my team to pick up the phone, but also empower them with the information that, what has Julia been looking at? How does she, how can we engage her most efficiently? And by doing that, we ensure that our time is more efficient as well, as opposed to picking up a list from A to Z. We actually start speaking with the people that are most engaged, most likely to want to speak with us about our services. And 3, can you build microsites, as I mentioned, microsites being those landing pages, and can we build journeys, i.e. automate through the canvas within OTTOmail to be able to say, if you take action A, I will respond with email A, B, C, etc. Get to know your base. So this is quite a cool thing actually, where you think about trying to understand the optimal send windows. And when we speak to a lot of businesses, they will tell me something along the lines of, we send all of our emails at Tuesday at 9 AM because that's when we get the best engagement rate. Now that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now with OTT, they've done all of this refinement to understand the best potential windows within your market. However, if you do start to send to your unengaged audience, i.e. the rest of your data that you hold as a business, some of this refinement will be useful to take place for yourself to understand how does your unengaged audience actually engage with your content. Now into the cool stuff and the bits that I know you guys have all been waiting for. So we're going to the 6 steps to 12 times your marketing ROI. So step 1 is a basic one, but it's have a clear objective. So whenever we start to communicate, what we tend to think as businesses is, how do I sell more stuff? I need to sell, therefore I need to communicate. And that message tends to be reciprocated or mirrored within the content of the email. To let you into a little secret, email very rarely converts on its own. If that was the case, we'd write one email that converted and it would go out 1,000,000 times a day and we'd just be printing cash. In actual fact, we need to understand how do we move people through into different stages of the sales funnel. So in actual fact, our sell more stuff becomes, how do I educate customers more about what we do? How do I add value to them? How do I give them a reason to want to come to our website and speak to my sales team? How do I warm up cold leads? How do I build a relative lead score for these people? And once we start to understand what the objective for our email to communicate is, we can then start to build from that. And that is then meaning the artwork, the collateral, etc., which is all focused on achieving a goal. Step 2 is to understand the sales funnel. So in actual fact, for us, this is what most businesses will look like with regards to a sales funnel. But without lead scoring, it's very difficult to identify who are those high-level engagers, mid and low-level engagers. You're actually only going to be looking at the sales side of things as opposed to the interaction. The very interesting point for most of you all within OTT is that from your non-passive to high-level engagers, your funnels will actually be flipped, because most of the data, in fact all of the data that you're receiving through OTT are high-level engagers. So you will see the majority of your base are high-level engagers who are highly in tune with what you do, need to have higher levels of frequency. But that will change if you start to upload your own data. So again, your OTT team will support you with that if you have existing data and you really want to start getting the most out of OTTOmail. As we understand our sales funnel, we actually have to then understand how do we communicate with people. So within Force 24 and for us as a business, again, the case study side of this is how we communicate. So anybody with a low level lead score of less than 10, we don't do anything. because in actual fact, you could click an email by accident. You may not have got to a point where you actually found anything of use. So we don't want to just pester you and be one of those retargeting horror stories where you've been followed around by a pair of jeans for 18 years. What we need to understand is, how do I then start to use digital retargeting once they're in a lead score between 10 and 40, identify our mid-level engagers and high-level engagers in order to facilitate the sales team to reach out and have an educated discussion, because those people then become they are engaged with what we do, they're interested in what we do, and we can now just empower them, because in actual fact, the most powerful people within your business are the people that work there. The sales teams are wonderful, highly trained, highly enthusiastic people about your business. It's just that we need to use that as a sparing resource and make sure that we're connecting them to the relevant people at the relevant time. Step 3 is to understand your data. And one thing that we often get carried away with is not realizing that actually the people on the other end are humans too, and they also have lives. So if you think about school holidays, Christmas, budget renewals, the current state of the industry now being a perfect time, what is the tonality and what is the frequency of what you're trying to talk to people about? Because in actual fact, if you're trying to talk about long haul travel right now, this could be better used. What we could be talking about is, what measures are we taking through COVID? Why are we doing this? In actual fact, who's furloughed within the business? As in for the people that you're trying to communicate with. A bit of tact and empathy will go a very, very long way. And remember, this is about building a relationship as opposed to trying to sell consistently. What happens here through our web tracking, so again, the case study side of this, Force24 can see what sort of level of activity do we get through the website, through our email engagement. And when we actually talk to a lot of businesses, every business can tell us when they are busy because the phone's ringing, sales are happening, etc. But in actual fact, when is the research side happening? When are people coming to your website pre-picking up the phone or pre-peak to understand you better? And once you can identify those stages of engagement, you can start to identify, when should I be creating content, i.e. when are we quiet enough to do so, we can plan for that. When are people most likely to be pre-preparing in order to educate themselves on what you do, and then the phone starts to get busy. And then the sales team and the sales start to flow through. And once you can identify those things, you can plan efficiently to make the most of your time and communication strategies. And again, this will not only help ROI, but it will help reduce internal strain on your teams, and it will help you to segment efficiently so that you can be more efficient with your time, because as we've already mentioned, marketeers are spread thin and wear multiple hats, so anything that can benefit you in these phases are massively invaluable. Step 4 is messaging and content. I can see there's a few people on here that have been to some of the previous events that we've done. So this was a document that we produced, which is available, and the guys at OTT will be happy to share it with you. It's the principles of an effective email campaign. That's available, so I won't work through this too hard, but I will share 4 quick tips. Number 1, write the killer headline first and think about what would you engage with. Far too often we write these, outlandish subject lines or just try and make it very basic. But in actual fact, think about something that would catch your attention. You are equally people in this industry, leaders in this industry. You understand what will catch attention. Let's try to pique people's interest in the early stages. Number 2 is remember the squint test, and what this means is, very quickly can you understand what you're trying to put across in this message. As I mentioned before, emails often don't get the time or never get the time reciprocated that has been put into the build, but if you can send something with a clear and impactful message, does it do so in the blink of an eye? 3, build mobile first, and by this we mean building single column. In actual fact, when people start to build in 2, 3 columns, the reason this was first introduced was because nobody thought anybody would ever scroll down. Below the fold was dead area. So what was trying to happen was marketeers were trying to squish as much stuff into the first page of an email as possible. What we see now is that in actual fact, people are more likely to scroll through, so a logical single column is very impactful. And number 4, I can't say this often enough, email is bait. This is simply a hook to grab somebody's attention, then bring them through to a landing page where they can digest that story fully, and then move through into the wider offering of the website. And if we can introduce those web tracking components to you guys as well, the flow and the impact of being able to track that engagement is absolutely invaluable. In fact, on this point, one thing that I will say for Force24 as a business, and when I talk about this to give you some scale, 2/3 of our business actually comes from people that have never reached out to us directly. It purely comes from that web activity and lead scoring, which then is then pushed into the sales team. And 2/3 of our business, which is astronomical, comes from people that have never reached out to us directly. Step 5 is campaign execution. On average, we open 1 in 6 commercial emails. 1 in 6 commercial emails is massive. And if you think about the effort that goes into the content that you create, to only give 1 in 6 chances for people to engage with that content, which is incredibly valuable in their industry, it tells me that there is value in resending. But because of the capability of a tool like OTTOmail, you would be able to say, if they've opened this or clicked through, I then don't want them to move through to the second email. If they haven't engaged with email 1, send them email 2, maybe 2 or 3 days later, and then email 3, and then email 4. And in actual fact, the cycle which we can follow this to repurpose content looks like this. The human argument has been built on experience, and this has had huge impacts on businesses of every industry. The first email, and for cold acquisition, this is easier to replicate. But you think of email 1 as an introduction to you guys as a business. Email 2 is social proof, businesses like you that we've worked with in the past. Email 3 is gain. How do we help with that product? The service is available. What do you stand to benefit from working with us? Email 4 is the consequences or the fear of missing out. Email 5 is a logical recap, and email 6 is to generate a sense of urgency. While this may feel excessive, in actual fact, if we see, we have seen within businesses that this journey alone has increased average order value by 200% in the B2C world. We have seen that from a lead generation perspective, this has had, in some businesses, 70% boost in lead generation. Because in actual fact here, by recycling this content and repurposing it, we have then said, if you only open if you open 1 of these emails, but you look back in your inbox and see you received other content, it's all talking at a different tonality, and it makes sense as to why this message has been resent as opposed to being beaten with the same stick repeatedly. However, if I were to open all 6 of these emails, I'm highly educated on who you are as a business, and what we start to see is the shift in perception move from cost into value. And all of a sudden, then you start to understand that people understand the true value of working with you and the potential returns of being connected to your business. To show you some of the sort of basic level benefits here. So when we look at opens and clicks, from sending out a single email campaign versus an overall journey approach. So where we've sent this as in a 6-stage email as opposed to a single-stage email, the engagement returns that speak volumes for themselves. You know, a 67% and 24% open and click versus 17 and 16.9 is absolutely massive. Again, you're creating valuable content. Just because somebody's there, they were pulled away from the email, or they were having a busy day, doesn't mean that they should miss out on that beautiful piece of work that you've put together. Number 6 is landing pages. I know I touched on this earlier, but landing pages for us as a business was something that our MD was not interested in. As far as he was concerned, we built a beautiful website, it did everything it should do, and therefore what was the value in having a tool like this? at Force 24, we have since moved through 2 versions of the email builder. One which was just a dynamic page builder, where we could build content within a matter of seconds and then post it and use it as landing pages. The second version of this is the dynamic content. So much as you'll see within your email builder, where you can set if somebody exists in, as an example, if they're in our mice category, then I'd like them to see this component. However, if you're an agent, I want you to see this component. So the variables within there has been really powerful for us. So the delivery impact for us, referring people through to our website for a single optimized campaign, delivered a conversion rate of 1.74. Once we introduced the microsite builder, that saw just over a 10% increase in conversion, and the dynamic microsite saw us see another jump in 10% of conversion of people following through to take the action which we'd requested. Now, this is absolutely huge, and I cannot tell you enough. If you can deliver people to a page which welcomes them by name, talks specifically about the content that they're interested in, and refers and also starts to empower our sales team, talking about their sales consultant, their region, etc. All of a sudden we start to move in a whole new world of marketing, where we are no longer broadcasting a one-size-fits-all. We are very much tailoring a bespoke experience for each individual that we're trying to connect with. I know we've gone through 5 main points there, and I've spoken quite a bit, so thank you all for taking the time. What I will say here is this is available. We will share the content that we wrote about the importance of communication right now, these 6 steps, but also just to give you another insight, these quick 9 steps, and I promise I won't keep you much longer. But these important steps any business can follow. If you want to explore whether or not you can take lead scoring, the web tracking, and the microsite builder from OTT and add that to your package, that's something that can absolutely be discussed. However, this is something that absolutely anybody can do. Number 1, cleanse your data. If you've got email addresses in your stack which have not engaged with you in 2-3 years, we all understand here how quickly people can move on into new roles in this industry. In actual fact, if you're keeping hold of dead email addresses, that is damaging your deliverability reputation and can have a negative impact on actually communicating with your target audience. So please be aware of the importance of cleansing your data. Wherever possible, segment and personalize. You know, that could be based on geographic locations. It could be the segments of your audience, as I mentioned before, mice, agents, etc. Anything that can make this more bespoke to people will have a massive impact. Remember to think of campaigns and not mail shots. You know, if you send out one single email, you're at best engaging with 16 to 17% of your target audience. Obviously, the OTTOmail, the OTT data that's coming through here is high value, so that you will see much better engagement. If we start to spread this out across your wider offering and your wider audiences, we need to make sure that we're giving multiple opportunities to engage with this content. Measurement is key, and we need to understand what success looks like before we send anything. Less is more in emails. Email is bait. And wherever possible, listen. You know, this could be the stories that people are telling you on the phones. You can send out questionnaires. You could actually ask people, what do you want to hear from us? What is the content that is really important to you? And you could ask that quarterly, biannually, annually, and all of a sudden you start to build up this more pertinent knowledge of how to communicate with your audience. Number 7 is humanize, and by this I mean talk about your team. I would much rather speak to Sarah, who heads up my region and works specifically in what I'm interested in, than speak to a specialist in your area. If you can humanize people, you can start to build their profile within the industry, and all of a sudden you'll really start to understand where the value comes from having a really well-educated, qualified team, which I know you guys all do. And remember as well that this is not just selling. Especially in the current climate right now, this is about consultation. How do I become a valuable asset to your team, and how do I tell you the things that you need to hear right now? How do I empower you to sell our business? And in such, remember that we tell a story 1 chapter at a time. If you start putting War and Peace into an email, it will very, very quickly be ignored, and all of a sudden your engagement will drop and drop and drop. If you can make this, much as number 5, less is more in emails, but make sure that there's a continuity that runs and you're telling that story in a logical format. Anything from here, I appreciate we've been through quite a lot of content. The guys at OTT are wonderfully educated on this platform and more than happy to help you guys move forward. As I said, there are a few components here which are available to you in addition, but thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much, James. That was really interesting. All of it, actually, all the different tips and things. It really is a very sophisticated tool that we have, at our fingertips. Takes sort of a bit to get your head around it all, and email marketing has become more and more sophisticated as we move forward. But I think your product is actually quite a simple product to use. Once you've got, to understand the basics, then you can take on more advanced sort of aspects of it, and then build some really quite exciting campaigns moving forward, can't you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's very easy to sit down in meetings, and we do when we talk to clients, and you end up selling the dream, which is, this is what it potentially could do. But in actual fact, the main objective here is this is an easy tool to use with potential complicated performance things. But in actual fact, stage 1 is, how do you do what you do now better and more efficiently? And then you build from those solid foundations into more complicated and more structured campaigns.
Yes, absolutely, because budgets are very tight for pretty much all of the travel industry right now, understandably. But this is the one thing that you've got that you can, in an unlimited way, certainly not all the landing pages and builders and so on, but at least just even sending out messages via OTTOmail to the trade, who are the ones that are selling you, is really vital. I know you mentioned right at the beginning that it's important to communicate and to communicate more. And now you've sort of gone through how you could communicate very deeply going forward, if that's something that you want to do. But there does seem to be 2 schools of thought running through the industry right now, which is to do lots of messaging or to do practically none and hide and kind of go in a bunker and wait for a bit and then somehow, I suppose, re-emerge and pop out, which I think is a dangerous strategy personally. But what do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The risk of not communicating, it just lets people's imaginations play. And if you're not communicating, it either makes it look like your business is at risk, or you have something to hide, or maybe you're not quite as well educated on what's happening right now as some of your competitors. A level of transparency is obviously needed here, where you need to be letting people know nobody has all the answers right now, but as a business, you are doing everything you possibly can to ensure that when the time is right, you are the safest people to fly with.
Yes, absolutely. Or destination to go to, of course. And whether you're locked or unlocked, and there's so many permutations. And I know it changes every week, but that's all the more reason to keep communicating as things do change. So, we do believe that the more knowledge the trade has out there, then the more likely they are to ensure that your destination is one that they're promoting, or your airline is the one that you're flying with, or that you are cruising, or whatever it is that you might be doing. So it is it's difficult times, but what a year. It's almost a masterclass in how to market through a pandemic, isn't it? And
yeah, and I think one thing to say is I'm by no means telling people to pretend that they're experts or that they have all the answers. But just by having that ability to communicate and say, look, this is what we're aware of, this is how we're moving with changing times, is very reassuring.
Yes, absolutely. So I haven't seen many questions coming through. So I think you've explained very clearly, and you've gone through some really good tips. It's probably hard to understand exactly what a landing page kind of really does look like, and exactly what does tracking mean. But we'd be on a call for a lot longer. I think if there's appetite for people wanting to see a bit more detail in the building of a campaign, one that's already sort of finessed and how that works, and then the reporting of it, then do let us know. In the meantime, if you do have any questions now for James, now's the time to ask. Just pop it into the Q&A button just at the bottom of your screen. Ooh, just as I said that, as if magic, one popped up. Does the ever-changing situation give an excuse for more regular communications in a way that may not have been the case before COVID?
That's a good question. I would say so. I think it's the tonality and content that needs to be measured with this. Inevitably, if you are adding value with every communication or you're updating something, that then yes, absolutely. I wouldn't send the same email every single day, you know, with unguided targeting. But if you are giving something new and you are keeping people up to date, then I would certainly say this is a time to communicate more frequently. I mean, even if worse comes to worse, you could ask your audience and say, you know, actually, how often do you want us to update you?
Yes, that is one way you could do it. But I absolutely agree with you. I think we do appreciate things do keep moving. You know, it was 2 meters to 1 meter. Spain was open, and sadly it wasn't. But the trade, if they can have all the information, but right from, as I put it, the horse's mouth, you know, from, you know, the leaders of the destinations or the airlines and so on, then that is true information they can rely upon. It's not conjecture. It's not something they've read. It's not rumor. It's authentic. And if it's coming from a place of knowledge, which they trust, and obviously all the information sitting on OTT are brands that they can trust with all the e-learning courses there, then jump on OTTOmail, and it's costing you nothing. Just get the information out there, and we can put it into a blog as well. And if it's a COVID related message, then as you know, we're still sending out every week. If it has to be daily, we'll send it out daily to 60,000, and those are very engaged. They want to know what's going on. So yes, Danny, I would keep the messaging coming.
Julie, you made such a good point there as well. The fact that there is so much scaremongering and you know, fake news out in the social media as well right now, and with so many people being furloughed and social media being so prevalent, actually for you guys to give a more educated perspective is imperative and so valuable right now.
Yes, I do feel it's the key to unlocking booking hesitation, because if the trade can feel confident and they can reassure consumers, just even on the small things, you know, we've had some interesting questions that have come up on webinars, which, you know, you wouldn't think matter. And children's rucksack, for example, can that go on board an aircraft if you can't put normal luggage? And does it seem that everything has to go in the hold? And actually, maybe no, it doesn't. So all these sort of things. How long do you wear a mask for? Is, you know, 4 hours enough? Was yesterday's question, and it turns out you need to change it every 4 hours. And we found that out live. It was Colin went straight onto it and saw that that's what you do. So information will keep changing as science unfolds and as the whole pandemic unfolds, and that's absolutely fine. If anything, it's news, and they're more likely to open your emails if they're getting constant news coming through. They're not big sales emails, are they? But at the same time, they are kind of promoting you in a whole different type of way through information and trust. Any more questions at all before we close for today? See if there's any more burning questions coming through. No, I think we're sort of stunned into silence. James, can we have the PowerPoint slides? Because I think they'd be quite nice to review. There was quite a lot of tips there. I was trying to write down a few myself. I'll wait quite quick.
Yeah, I'll share with you, Julia, to feed out to people. But the PowerPoint slides, the email builders that we went through, obviously on the previous session, and also the piece that we did for Travolution as well about the importance of transparency and communication.
Yes, that would be a very interesting piece to read. So it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining us today. And James, thank you very much for presenting such an interesting presentation on email marketing. Just one little point of news is OTT are actually running a survey. It'll launch from later tonight. And it's asking the agents to fill in their booking details for June and July. And all the questions have been prepared by Chief Economist Peter Morris, and he will then be putting together the answers at the end of August, once we've got enough once we've got enough surveys completed. And it's worldwide, it's not just the UK. This is going on to across all of our websites. So we're going to try and get a good feel across the world on how June and July's bookings have gone, what the trends are. And then I'm going to see if I can encourage Peter to come on a webinar and let you know the results as well at some point, probably early September, I would say. So there we go, just a little bit of news flash from OTT. Just remains for me to wish you all well and have a wonderful, sunny, hot weekend. Enjoy that. And you too, James, over there. I think you're in Leeds today, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Is it sunny in Leeds?
It's sunny today, not like last time we spoke. And you were in sunshine and I was in torrential rain.
You were there. Well, we spread the love then. We spread it across the country. That's the main thing. Okay, so just it remains for me to say goodbye from OTT. And bye from James. See you then. Bye, everybody.